Hello and welcome once again to episode 6 of Code Completion. We are a group of iOS developers and educators hoping to share what we love most about development, Apple technology, and completing your code on this brand new show of ours. My name once again is Dimitri Bugnol and I'll be your host for this episode, and I'm joined today by my fellow completionists Ben.
Hey.
And Fernando.
Hello, hello.
And we actually have not one but two special guests today, Josh Holtz.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
And Tyler Hilsman.
Hey there, happy to be here.
So, since we have a lot of junior developers that listen, can you tell us a bit about how you got into development? Let's start with Josh.
Oof. All right. So, in 2004, I think I started. In my sophomore year of high school, they offered a class I could take, and it was Visual Basic 5, Visual Basic 5, I think. So I started with that my first semester. After that, we did HTML and CSS the second semester. And then I got into the Java class for my junior year. And then by then, I tapped out of everything. So I did an independent study in my senior year for Java as well, I believe. During this time, my parents also got me a VPS for a Christmas present one year, VPS? Virtual Private Server, yeah. So I had my own LAMP server that I did some PHP and MySQL on. I probably made some like really stupid stuff, but it was kind of fun to learn. I ended up going to school for engineering, where we did a lot of Java in those 4 years. I picked up Ruby on the side because I found a book at Barnes & Noble's for it, and it looked cool. I knew nothing about it. But it turns out that was probably one of like the best books I've ever bought in my entire life, because I pretty much do Ruby full time these days. So in engineering school, I did a lot of Java enterprise type of learning, whatnot. And I actually saw my first iPhone, I think it was my freshman year of college. And I was like, that is so cool. And I needed to get on that, but also I did not have a MacBook and I couldn't afford an iPhone. So I waited 3 years to get a Android. And then I started doing Android development for a few years. Got a MacBook after I graduated college. Started doing a little bit of iOS, nothing super serious. But I ended up taking a job at Rockwell Collins after graduation. That I actually quit after 2 months. They weren't going to let me code at all. And I was like, that's not going to fly with me. So I actually moved to Iowa for that. And I moved back to Milwaukee. And I wanted to do freelancing. But 4 of my friends from school also wanted to get out of their enterprise job. So we started a software consulting firm. I was the first one to be full-time in it because I YOLO quit my job. But when I did work full time with that, we brought we just kind of like grew from me to 2 to 3 to 4 within a year. So we had 4 engineers and 1 designer. And we started that in 2011. We're still going on today. We have a total of 10 employees now. We do
Nice.
a lot of stuff from, I mainly do mobile. We have Android guy. We do a lot of cross-platform Ionic because it's kind of what our client base likes. We have Elixir folks that are pretty heavy on that side. And then Fastlane is kind of what I do full-time right now inside of that. I became a contributor in 2015. And then I'm maintainer of Fastlane, which is a mobile automation distribution tool. I became lead maintainer in 2018 and have been doing that pretty much ever since. And that's mainly Ruby, but I have to still do a lot of stuff with iOS community, Android community, all that kind of stuff.
Nice. And
I
what
think
about
that's
you,
my
Taylor?
story.
It's a good story. Yeah, for me, I'm a little unorthodox. Like a lot of kind of self-taught developers. I mean, I guess my programming beginning started with HTML, CSS, kind of the same like standard stuff. I actually kind of taught myself that in like middle school, high school. My dad's a technology coordinator at school, and so he was just, I was playing around in his office, and he was like, just set me down and said, here's how to make a web page in Netscape Composer, and kind of took it from there. Decided to actually look at the code at some point and write actual HTML from scratch. So I always kind of had that as a hobby, and just like making fun pages on my own, doing a couple side projects in high school, and then in college, my degree actually is in marketing, and I have an MBA after that. But I was always doing tech stuff. If I was on like a committee or a organization, I was always doing like the website or things like that. And so it was always kind of something that went along with what I like to do for fun, basically. And so once I got a real job, it was a marketing job, but I kind of transitioned myself to the tech side of marketing, and so like landing pages and HTML emails, which are horrible. But I did that at a corporation for a little bit, and then I heard that there was a class of a startup in town here in Kansas City that would teach app development, and so I was like, well, it's not terribly different from web development, I'm sure. So let me just jump in and try this. And it was a free course because they wanted you to use their platform, which is like a proprietary platform. And so I actually ended up working for them. So I used the platform to learn. I also jumped in and worked for them. Actually. Primarily first as a marketing person, but then actually transitioned more into development while I was there. Had a few jaunts with design stuff on the side as well. Started my own kind of independent apps and things like that. Whenever Swift was announced, I jumped straight into that because I tried to teach myself Objective-C, and I could do a little bit, but Swift was more of a JavaScripty, a little more approachable language that I was kind of used to, and so jumped right in. Swift won, and haven't really looked back, and so I really focused on mobile at that point. Had a few different jobs, but I'm currently in a position where I am both on the product side and on the engineering side, building out mobile apps, leading a mobile team of iOS and Android, also writing iOS code. My company's Outdoorsy, which is Airbnb but for RVs, is the 1 second pitch. So that's what I'm currently doing. I'll keep myself busy with indie apps, my side project stuff, as well as of course the day job. So that's me.
Wow, you guys are amazing. Like both stories were just like, what? No, that's. Can he keep going?
We can keep going.
It's a long story. Yeah.
No, of course. I mean, it's just success after success. I'm very, very happy to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the whole reason why you're here is because I hear from Ben that you are very interested in talking about the different types of App Store models for building apps. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'm working on 2 apps right now because I have a problem with like having a life outside of computers, and I'm trying to take these seriously. I've launched some in the past, and they've just been like more like tech projects, nothing that I actually wanted to market. So I've may have put them up for a price just because I didn't want them to actually get downloaded. But that's like the extent of my revenue model in apps. So I opened up a can of worms and tweeted out what's the best approach, paid up front, freemium or subscription, stuff like that, and it kind of turned into a whole thing. My phone was just blowing up the entire night because everybody had opinions, which were awesome because I have absolutely none as a developer or person behind the app, only as a consumer. And this time I'm trying to be the developer behind it. So it's kind of curious what the correct way to go is. And I'm very uninformed in this field. I've created a revenue cat account this week, and that's as far as I've gotten. I've done nothing with it yet.
Well, that's one step further than no steps, right? I mean, at least you have
that is very true. Very true.
Yeah, and deciding that you actually want to, make money off of it is a step
too.
Because
I think it might be good to start out the conversation by saying what are sort of generally speaking, what are the ways that you can monetize your iOS app, at least in the modern context of the App Store. For those who don't know, if maybe you're new to iOS development, basically there's fully free, where you don't charge anybody anything. There's fully paid up front, where you charge a fee to purchase and then download and use your application, and that fee is usually just a one-time thing. There is in-app purchase, which you can do either one of two ways. You can either have an in-app purchase that you use inside the app to unlock new features as a one-time purchase. So maybe the app is free itself, but then and maybe some of the content and some of the features are available for free, and then the other features that you might have, you sort of put them behind this paywall and say, these 3 features are free. If you want these other 3 or 4 features, you need to pay for a pro upgrade. Let's say it's $3 or $4, and they would do that once, and then they would unlock those features. That's typically called freemium, meaning sort of free plus premium. And then lastly, there is also subscription. So same idea. The app is probably free to download, and then in order to use it, you have to pay for a recurring subscription that can be, I think the options are weekly, monthly, and yearly. I think are the 3 choices inside App Store Connect.
Weekly is a thing?
Yeah, that's weekly is actually
$10 a week.
Weekly is
Scammer's
actually
favorite.
the one that scammers love to use, because
Yep.
oftentimes people don't pay close attention, and so they'll see $5 and they'll be, oh, $5 a month or $5 a year. That's fine.
Huh.
It's $5 a week, which is
I had no idea.
yeah. So
Weekly, monthly, yearly?
Yes, weekly, monthly, yearly are the 3 options. And I believe you can price it anywhere from 99 cents up to, I think the upper bound on pricing is it $99 now, or is it
I don't remember.
$1,000?
Is it still 1,000?
$1,999. So you can
I remember the I Am Rich app.
I am rich, yeah, of
Right,
course.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a variety of options, but basically those are the different ways that you can monetize your app. And then the one that maybe is the most interesting in sort of the news today is the idea that you monetize your service, business, whatever it is, outside the App Store, perhaps like through a website.
Oh, yeah.
And then what that gets you is out of the 30% cut that Apple would take, because any of the things I talked about so far that involve money and the App Store, Apple takes 30% of all of those fees, whichever one you end up picking. So if you go outside the App Store, you can get around that, but of course you run the risk of Apple rejecting you and or shutting down your developer account and being, quite nasty
Mean
to
to
you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
mean to you,
knew
depending on-
that option was not one that I was even trying to consider.
Yeah, I mean, it has a bunch of overhead and other things that you may or may not want to do anyway. So
Yeah.
But just to
And
kind of set
there's-
the stage, those are the options. So
There's also the option, which I like to call the Skype model. Not the Skype, sorry, the Sketch model. Sorry, S named apps. But it's kind of like a subscription where you pay for a set amount of time and you get updates for that amount of time, but then it doesn't auto-renew at the end of it, and you
Right.
kind of keep all the features that you quote-unquote paid for, and you continuously get maintenance updates forever. So that's kind of
That's-
like the in-between.
That's kind of what like Tweetbot did, right? There was like Tweetbot 4, Tweetbot 5, something like that. Is that
I would say that's more of the traditional model where you kind of come out with a new version of the app and then you kind of
I agree.
remove
Okay.
from the old one from sale.
Yeah.
I don't even
Okay.
know how you update the old one at that point.
You
I think
don't
it's
on
get-
App Store Connect.
you
You-
can't.
I don't think you do.
Straight up, yeah. You just lose it.
Yeah,
I-
they do. Oh, sorry.
There's another interesting model which I just read about. I think Panic is coming up with a code editor. I don't know
Yeah.
if it was Panic.
Nova.
Nova.
Yeah, Nova, right? And what they're saying is like there's an upfront fee,
the same
$45 or something like that, and then you can pay for yearly updates at any point in time.
Hmm.
So that's pretty good. Like you can use it. Like I have Tower, the Git client, but I have Tower 2, which is a great client, paid up front, happy with it, happy to give my money. But then they moved to a subscription in Tower 3, and I'm like, I am not paying a subscription for using like a Git UI client. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's your kind of freedom to do so, right? You can
Agreed.
just keep using Tower 2, and there's no issue. I think the problem with the App Store when it comes to at least the iOS App Store is that there aren't as many. There's not as much freedom there, because let's say you're using an app that you really like, and then the person developing that app decides to switch to a subscription model. the only real way to keep what you've got is to actively not update your app to the newest version, right? There's no way to kind of say like, no, I want to segregate this off and say that I don't ever want to update this again. You have to just kind of be careful and just avoid updating it, which is pretty much impossible to do, especially if you have something like, automatic updates turned on, which I think is now the default.
Yeah,
so that's kind of the one difference as far as the user is concerned, is there's just not as much freedom to say, I'm happy with this. Like, I would have been happy keeping Tweety, right? Like, but that wasn't an option. Yank it from the store, we upload it as Twitter, and then they'd ruin it, and so on and so forth. So for the people who have, I know, like for you, Tyler, you have Pennant. Do you have a monetization model in there now? And if so, kind of how did you come to the sort of the conclusion of which one you wanted?
Yeah, definitely. That is like, that goes all the way back to the beginning, because when I launched the app, it was like 2013. Yeah, it was like right before baseball season started in 2013. And in those times, there was in the olden days, there were no subscriptions, and even freemium was like kind of a thing, but like a lot of paid up front was kind of just the way to go. And having spent some time on it, and also just tinkering and like not expecting to make a ton of money, but like kind of wanting to get some amount of like cash back or something, I put a price tag on it, and I forgot what I launched with, but over the course of the first couple of years, it was either 99 cents or $1.99 just paid up front. So I think I kind of experimented with that a little bit back and forth, and honestly, I don't know which one worked the best, but so it was paid up front there. And then over a couple of years, it became like paid up front kind of went out of style, I guess, a little bit, or there was a little more of a push to be able to like see what the app was all about before you actually paid for it. And so I switched to kind of the new system where it's free upfront and it's like ad supported, and I don't really love it. And actually, spoiler alert for my next version, I'm going to even rip ads out of the next version of it, because there's a mess and it's Google, and I don't want information being getting soaked up there. But as far as the user would get like the basic stuff, and then I added a kind of a more in-depth functionality for people who wanted to pay. And my justification really is that the deeper level stats require a deeper level of kind of upkeep and maintenance as far as the servers go, because I'm constantly scraping stuff and constantly calculating baseball or stats in that case. And so that's how I operated for quite a bit. And then but I wanted to be sure to grandfather in the previously paid people, so those people got a heck of a deal basically if they relative if they paid up front. I gave them all the features for free. How
would you handle that migration?
Yeah, like,
I'm not sure how that happens. Like, is there like a special code that you sent them in order to like get them around the in-app purchase, or? So
there is receipt validation, which is notoriously tricky and kind of a complex thing, which fortunately I think RevenueCat handles for you, which is a good thing that you're in that situation. But receipt validation is where you ask Apple, what's the current state of this user's purchase history, or like what is their purchase history? And so I know which version I switched to free, and so I say basically if their original application version was before that, give them this functionality. And so had to write that code, because there's examples how to do it in app, but Apple says do that from a server just in case someone opens up your binary.
So you get the receipt from the actual app purchase from those original users, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, and then the new users, you get receipts from the in-app purchases.
Yes, and I mean it all comes down the same the same call, I think. But basically you can see when was this first downloaded, and if they're first downloaded when in my case at least, because I don't have that tricky of a history, I can say if it's before this time, give them this additional feature. So it's definitely an interesting migration. It's something I'm still sort of paying the cost on, but it's I wanted to make it right by those first users, even though hopefully most of them have hopefully most of them are still around. That'd be nice. But as far as where I'm going now, I recently last year opened or expanded what was once just a baseball app to be multiple sports, and so in that case I had a complexity there where people were already paying a subscription for advanced baseball stats. But I also wanted people to pay more for unlocking everything, so that you could have baseball and football if you're interested, and not have to buy 2 individual things, which you could, but to save money, can unlock everything. And so that I intentionally gave myself some complexity there, and basically said, there's all sports, and then there's each individual one. I'm adding a drastic amount. I'm trying to shift away from that decision already after a year, mostly just to simplify things. I'm drastically adding new features to the app that really don't care about what sports you are looking at. It's kind of just open to everything. And so I'm going to add that only to this top tier and really de-emphasize those single sports. But anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. And so it's definitely tricky. I also recently made a Revenue Cat account, mostly because I've heard really good things about that. I want to say I think Becky Hansmeyer uses it, and I'm sure plenty of people have used it. And it just really seems really simple. And so I'm going to give that a shot for this upcoming version.
How does that migration work over to that?
The nice thing is that, and I'm obviously a Revenue Cat noob. The nice thing is that
Same.
they fall back on like Apple's records basically. So they
Okay.
you just tell them what your app IDs are, or your in-app purchase IDs
Okay.
are, and then they just know. And so it's like basically a wrapper around Apple's existing stuff.
I mean, at this point, in-app purchases have become so complex that
Yeah.
it would be no surprise at all if Apple acquired Revenue Cat.
Right.
It's like
right.
like
I hope.
basically
I
a
never thought of
no-brainer at
that.
this point, because it's like at what point did it become so complex that you need a third-party company to help you sort these things out? Because it's like Tyler said, like you could do receipt validation on the device, but if if there's a malicious actor sending you invalid tickets, then you're giving out purchases. So you need a third-party server. So up until recently, that basically ruled out Objective-C and Swift for development. So you would either need something like, there was a company, AirDrop or something, I think, who was sort of like the precursor to Revenue Cat. They handled subscriptions and notifications and so on. But then Revenue Cat really comes in with let's just make it super simple, as it should be,
Yeah.
like offering purchases to users.
Do you mean Urban Airship? Is that what you were thinking of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did they
Urban-
they did something like that, right?
They did push notifications. I don't know if they did receipt validation. I think they're still around. They're from last I checked, they're extremely expensive, so they're only really like useful
Yeah, I
to
know.
you if it's a giant app.
I know they did push notifications. I wasn't aware of.
I don't know if I'm misremembering then. I remember having a need for like the server, and being like, oh, I can't. I would need to learn Ruby or PHP or whatever language is fancy right now, JavaScript, and that would take a lot of time.
But that's a good point, Fernando, that like as a sort of an artifact of just a piece of the implementation details of your platform, an entire multi-million-dollar business is capable of being stood up and can exist to serve that need. That is for one, I think a great testament to the ingenuity of the founders of Revenue Cat,
Agreed.
but also kind of pretty ridiculous that Apple's a $2 trillion company and they couldn't like make that work in a way that isn't terrible.
It's incredible. Now that you mention it, it's incredible the two different sides of Apple, where on one side they're like, please learn to code. We built this amazing iPad app that anybody can use. We're sending it to children, like literally 7-year-olds can code. And then on the other hand, their in-app purchase is so complex that a huge, like you said, multi-billion-dollar company is just working on it.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah,
I
it
think it's
doesn't-
mostly because we're trying to have the most options available, and that's why the in-app purchase system is as complex as it is, because you can implement very different situations that are specific to your needs, whereas Revenue Cat is probably trying to solve, okay, what are the most common like workflows that developers are
that's
after,
fair.
and let's make that as easy as possible. And that is certainly something that Apple could like help support better. But the fact that in-app purchases can support a huge amount of different situations, I think, is a testament to its flexibility. And they have been making efforts to make it more testable and easier to use. I mean, I learned this year that, you no longer need to sign out of your iTunes account on your phone anymore. You can just sign in with your test account, and you're signed into both, and that's that. And I'm like, why didn't I try this 5 years ago when I got last pissed off at it? Because it made me like jump back and forth between those accounts.
Can you repeat that last thing? I don't think I was aware of the thing that you just said, and I'm unsure what it actually is.
So if you want to test your in-app purchases, you need to make a Sandbox account, and you do that through App Store Connect.
Okay.
Now, in the past, you had to log out of your iTunes account and log into your test account, and be very, very careful to never, ever click on a button that's not your Sandbox app. Because if you did by accident, it would turn your Sandbox account into a real iTunes account, at which point you're screwed and you have to make a new one and burn a brand new email. And it doesn't support like the Gmail aliases or anything. It's
it has to be like you can't use like burner emails. It has to be like legit looking email.
Yep. So I actually discovered that because the App Store Connect API, I had to do I had to redo all of that, and to test that out, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna create email accounts with like the +1, +2, +3, and it wouldn't let me do that. So I had to create new Gmail accounts to test this with. I was like, this is interesting. I don't really know why they don't allow that plus thing anymore, but I guess they want to make sure that you're actually like different people. But for having test accounts, I feel like the +1, +2, +3 should totally be a thing they allow.
Yeah.
Well, now it's a whole lot more testable, right? Apparently, like in Xcode, in a unit test, you can go ahead and make up whatever situation you want because the whole server is kind of mocked at that point, so you can run into any situation. But that's just in unit tests. I haven't tested it.
An Xcode 12 thing, or is like,
is that StoreKit? Is that what that is? Okay. I saw that. I saw some hype around it, but I was like, oh, I'm not going to use that. And then now I'm like, maybe I'm going to use that.
Yeah. That's one of those edges of WWDC I haven't quite gotten to yet. I think was one of those things I wanted to watch because I'd heard something about mocked up testing different states and stuff, and I mean that's better than nothing for sure. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah. For me, a couple of years ago, I had to overhaul an in-app purchase subscription for an app that I became in charge of. And this is both the in-app purchase part itself and also the account creation that was done for just the app, like internally for us, for our company. But I tracked 14 steps to go from zero. I just downloaded the app and installed it and ran it once to I have purchased and fully created an account and I'm ready to use the application. It was 14 steps long and none of them were documented. That was not Apple's fault. That was people who wrote the code before me.
I'm crying a little bit. That sounds painful.
So I had to basically run the app a billion times, and basically every time I'd find a step, I would then literally add some comments to okay, this is step 6, and then way over here is step 8, and then and eventually I had it all documented, and then I was able to follow the flow, and I of course tried to sort of simplify that some, if I could, but it's definitely the case that if you don't do this part of it, sort of like user sign up, purchasing, that kind of thing, if you don't do that intentionally, I guess if you don't have intention behind it, right? If you don't sort of design it on purpose, it will end up looking, I'm sure, like that. So my general advice is always to, figure out what you want, like the way you want your onboarding to go ahead of time, and then factor in like StoreKit and all that stuff, because it is going to be part of it, and it definitely isn't as easy as it could be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know if you guys follow like David Barnard on Twitter, but he's sort of famous for showing, for example, that little payment screen that pops up, like when you're all done and they've chosen a subscription or whatever, and it brings up the little like system dialogue of how you're actually going to pay with Touch ID or Face ID.
Yeah.
Why couldn't they just bake all of the information directly into that screen?
Right.
And then
Yep.
Revenue Cat has something like that built in, right? Do they? I've purchased a few things the past few days, and like 2 or 3 of the apps had confetti fly from the sky, and I'm like, that can't just be a coincidence that you both have confetti. So I don't know if that's a Revenue Cat thing, but I want that confetti kit.
It's like the smoke from the disc. What was it called? I don't know if any of you remember. There was a CD burner app for the Mac at the beginning of the Delicious generation, and it would literally have smoke come off the window as you were burning your CDs.
Nice.
So great.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Tyler.
Oh, I was gonna say I put confetti in an app that has not yet been released either, so I'll send that to you, Josh.
Oh,
But,
perfect.
yeah, I think we're
Is
I
it
think we're just. Oh, sorry, go
is it called Confetti Kit?
ahead. I
It should
think
be.
yeah, there should be one.
I can't
I
say.
made one. I made one from scratch with the emitter
Oh,
stuff. Yeah,
yeah. I
I,
want that. Send that my way.
I wrapped it. It's used in Swift UI, but it's really UI kit and everything.
Okay, I'll take it.
Cheater.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say, like, even to continue with Ben's thoughts, the issue that I've run into, and I think I'm echoing Tyler here, is that even if you put a lot of thought into your onboarding, eventually you run into a point where you already have a bunch of users, and there's two things you usually want to do. One, you want to iterate your onboarding quickly to understand where you're losing users, what works, what doesn't work, and at the same time, you want to preserve the old users. So
Yep.
it's really it gets like out of hand very very quickly. It's very annoying. I think the one of the least favorite parts of iOS development is in-app purchasing for me, for
I
sure.
think we're just scaring Josh off now. We're just saying.
So I
Right up
think I've
front.
actually made a decision. I am gonna do in-app purchase. Mainly because the two apps I'm making are ones that don't really have a back end to them. I actually challenged myself for like the past year that I'm never gonna make a thing that has an actual like back end again, because I don't have the
Nice.
time for that.
Nice.
Which is kind of the reason I haven't made an app in probably like forever. But I don't have time to do all that. I don't really find that fun these days. If I had time, it would probably be fun. I don't have time; it's not fun. So I want to like standalone apps. So the ones that I'm doing are probably not going to be subscription based, just because I don't. I feel like that's almost like stealing from users, because there's nothing really going on that really needs a subscription. And I feel like the only reason I almost want to go paid is because the App Store has a separate like
Mhm.
paid list and free list. And one of my apps is an RSS app, which there's a million of them. I know like it's a tough market to go into, but I did not like any of them that were out there. So I made this one just for me, and I'm like, well, I might as well also put it out there. But if I put that one in the free list, I think that falls under the news category. And there are so many free news apps that like it's gonna get lost there. I don't know what the paid news apps are like, but my other app would fall under the travel category. And I looked under the paid travel category, and like the top app is like one where you find Walmart parking lots to park in for like an RV, and I'm like, I could totally take that on. So like
You're
like I almost wanted
underestimating.
that one. I mean, it's probably like a big thing for RVs that you have, Tyler, that you want to go park them in a Walmart parking lot.
I need to partner with this app.
But but I'm like, do I put that one as a paid up front, because like that could top those charts? Does that help more? Or like there are a bunch of free travel apps, so I think I'm stuck with like, I think it should be an in-app purchase of some sort, and I want to get like how like I market that in the app later. But like from like an app store marketing perspective, like I feel like there's almost more, like it's easier to top the ranks in the paid category, like SpendStack did, or I believe Jordan Morgan is like in the top of the paid and things in the finance category is his primary.
Mhm.
Like
I think so.
I could do that maybe in the trip category, but I'm not sure exactly. So I think that's kind of my biggest point of which way do I go in that.
I think
And-
you need to think about like how easy it is to get to those charts nowadays, because you have to dig quite a lot
Yeah.
Yeah.
now to get to them. So I don't know if any user bothers to get
I
to
don't
that
know
point
if-
to see
Agreed.
it.
But I will say,
but-
Okay.
related to that, though, I will say that even if individual users are not going to go to those charts and look at them and they're like, "Ooh, I'm going to get the number one whatever," right? Those charts do influence, I believe. I mean, this is all black box, but like I believe that they do influence things like App of the Day and sort of it does bubble up for the App Store employees, and that means that if you are more consistently at the top end of those charts, you're more
You get
likely
featured?
to get features, get App of the
Okay.
Day, that kind of thing, right? So even if the individual users are not using that as a way to sort of get apps themselves, it might allow you to then bubble up so that you can then get featured. I mean, like Jordan Morgan with SpendStack, he was actually featured he ended up getting featured on the iPhones that are in Apple stores.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which is
Ooh.
super cool. So
Good
it's
spot.
like a demo version. So and
Not
again,
right now, but
right, yeah, it was cool until we couldn't go out anymore.
Unlucky timing there.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that in part is like how they come up with some of those, who they're going to feature, sort of based on,
Yep.
and the app has to be good too, but like where you chart.
Yeah.
you can always use the old technique too of having a paid app and a free app that feeds into the paid app. I mean, it's
Can you?
super easy nowadays using StoreKit to just buy an app within another app, especially if it's your own. Like, you don't need to
Wait.
do anything.
But can you do that? Have like
Yeah.
a
You
can
free
buy it-
and the paid version?
Yeah.
It happened all the time back in the day.
Back
Yeah.
I remember back in the day you could do it. I don't know why I have
just
this
have-
idea that it's forbidden now.
It's not forbidden.
2 IDs essentially.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
it's the same app.
Ironic-
One with that unlocked stuff in it.
Ironically enough, my app that's been in the App Store since almost day one, the paid version got like taken off because it was too old, despite being like not 32-bit or anything. Apple just decided, oh, we're gonna take this off because you haven't updated in 5 years. But the
Yeah.
free version, which wasn't updated since like iOS 6, is still up.
Nice.
Okay.
So that's feeding downloads somewhere. I don't know where. But
But that's a good thing to keep in mind, Josh, is like when you're, in this discussion of should it be paid up front or should it be freemium or should it be subscription or whatever, like I think the idea of subscription costs for you, right? So if there's API costs you're incurring or server costs, whatever, that's going to influence how you decide if how is that going to be perceived by users, right? Are they going to find the subscription valuable? Something we haven't talked about yet is like subscription fatigue, which is a thing that people go through, certainly in sort of the modern day of like everything has to be subscribed to and paid for. That's anything that's good anyway. So that's a concern. But like, as a developer, when you're thinking of how should I do this, I think in addition to those ideas of like what monetary mechanism am I going to use to make money with this, also how is that going to influence how my app's going to be perceived on the store, right? Like where it's going to end up charting and so all those things. I think that's another thing that people don't necessarily think of, probably in particular because those charts are not as obvious anymore as they used to be in the App Store. It used to be the App Store app was sort of driven by those charts. They had their
It
own
was just
tabs
that.
and right, like it was just that. So that's how we kind of all gauged everything. Those charts still exist, but they're just not nearly as visible anymore.
I guess to be fair, I don't even know what the paid versus free list actually looks like now.
Yeah,
in the App Store.
right, exactly.
It looks
So
the
I
same.
guess
It's
I
hidden.
might still be like imagining like iOS 6 App Store in my head, where
Right.
like
Yeah.
big
Good old
switch
days.
at the top. You go,
Yeah.
But like I guess that's not really how the App Store works now. So I guess I could probably like cross that thought off my list as
To-
it.
Yeah, I
Doesn't
agree.
really
And
matter.
to expand Ben's point and this whole point about like it not mattering that much, you just do whatever you feel like, and follow the data. Really,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
like here's a
Yeah.
funny anecdote. I worked for a company that was charging paid upfront, right? So it was $5 for the app. You paid, you downloaded the app, and then had fun with it. Eventually, they were like, subscription is the holy grail. Let's move over to subscription. But they didn't want to leave the paid upfront fee. So for a time, they were paid upfront, and then after you got in,
Wow.
you had to pay a subscription for like an additional. So the free tier wasn't free; it was $5, and then there was another subscription-based tier,
The
and it
the
worked.
free tier was $5.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean that's sort of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Well,
In the
you
door
have
tier.
a pool of just paying customers at that point, right?
That is
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. So what I'm saying is like
Oh.
that sounds crazy. And when they pinged Apple, like,
Yeah.
hey, like the API sort of allows us to do this, can we actually do it? Like I remember the email coming back from Apple and being like, well, you could, but we actually don't know of anyone who has done that. So we tried it for a while. It worked. Eventually, we went all in on subscription. But it's such a
Yeah.
funny story because it emphasizes that just do whatever you want. And if people start paying you, keep doing it. If they don't, just
Try again.
iterate. Yeah.
Try again. Yeah, that makes sense. So the part like I'm stuck on. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to go in-app payment for the RSS one, just because like I don't want to have some upfront cost that battles other RSS readers. Like I want people to actually get in and use it, and I made this for myself out of rage that I didn't have one like this. So like I like past, we would have just released it for free, open source, whatever. But I was like, I want to challenge myself this year to actually market this thing. So now, like for the in-app purchase for like the pro level, there's like two different paths that I feel like I can go down. There's the like actually like limit features that makes it like almost painful to use in a way without the like pro version. Or do I go like the here are some bonus features / support the developer kind of feel? Like have more app icons, get access to some other fun stuff that's stupid but not actually like necessary for the app to work. Like my feel is like support the developer because I'm totally biased that way. I'm like, oh, I am the developer. I know how this developer of this app feels. I want to support the developer, where I'm like probably less likely to purchase a pro version because I'm not a pro user. I'm like the average Joe user that might not use this. I would much rather support the developer. In the end, it does the exact same thing. But like, what's the best way to kind of do that, I guess, in terms of like, not necessarily my app, but like, how do I decide kind of which route to go down?
Tyler, for Pennant, did you take the approach of like I'm gonna sort of dangle this pretty big carrot out, right? And like he said, almost painfully restrict the features. Like you talk to like Curtis Herbert with Slopes, I feel like his app is he's very much a proponent of like super strong call to action on upgrading to pro. That's what he wants you to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's certainly a take you can take, or you can do like the Fortnite thing where it's like the game is free and you can play the game all day long. And then here's a bunch of silly crap that you don't really need.
Yeah.
But turns out you can make like hundreds of thousands of dollars on silly crap that nobody really needs.
Yeah, exactly.
Since you put it that way, I mean.
Yeah, for me, I think that I tried to split the difference. Like I want it to be useful for free users, but I also wanted to provide value if you're willing to pay for it. And also the dollar amount I'm talking is like real small. Like for a single sport, I think it's $2 a year. And for the all sports pack, it's $5 a year. So it's basically and actually I was talking to Charlie Chapman on his podcast, and he said that it's the first one that he really thought about subscribing to because everything is seasonal basically, and like you're technically not paying for a season, but you're paying for a year, and but it maps to a season in sports terms. And so I think that's been beneficial. I also haven't charged a ton for it. I do think I'll probably bump up the high tier. So buy it now before I bump that up for this additional features. But yeah, that's the approach I've taken. I did add ads, which I think is a little more of a stick and less of a carrot, I guess. But like I said, I'm going to pull those out mostly because I can't stand that ugliness being on my UI. But yeah, I do think I'm leaning more towards that, more support the developer style. I don't currently have app icons, and like that would be something.
Yeah, that's a big one, I feel like.
Yeah, stuff like I mean, Charlie's done a great job. Christian Selig with Apollo has done a great job of like providing really good functionality for free users. I think it's free, and then I have a pro tier or like packs.
Yeah, he has free. He has one-time IAPs and also subscriptions as well. So he kind of hits all of them.
Yeah. It's a little complex, but I think I was looking through it
the
the
other
other
day
day as we were.
His.
Yeah, exactly. As we were talking about this on Twitter, I was looking through and I was like, man, he's done a great job, especially like, it's not so much of I guess, he has a good like FAQ kind of justification for like, so why am I paying money? And he's like, well, I'm sending you push notifications. That has a cost. And it's, stuff that non-tech people probably don't understand or think about. That there is ongoing, especially with the back end type stuff, there ongoing costs. That
Christian's audience is for one, he's doing a great job because they love him. They love
exactly.
Apollo.
Yeah,
people are rabid fans of that. I mean, I love Apollo. I use it. That's the line that I use. But also, I think he does a really great job of like humanizing those costs, because I think it's very. I forget where it was, but I heard somewhere that I guess a decent portion of the world thinks that all apps in the App Store were built by Apple employees. And when you say I make iOS apps, people sometimes will think that means you work for Apple, which is obviously not true.
I think that was Jordan
You
Morgan,
all don't
actually.
work
I
for
think.
But that was Jordan Morgan with Spensac.
Yeah. He was on a podcast that I think he actually said that he got an email from someone like thinking that he worked at like some big enterprise, and he's like, nope, just me, side project.
Right. So humanizing those costs, right, and saying like I'm just one person. This is my livelihood. I think that really helps to kind of make people feel more understanding of, oh, well, then $5 a year is not that
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and that's something I have wanted to, and I need to do a better job about, like, humanizing myself. Like, back early on, I was like, I'm gonna say everything like, whenever I'm like tweeting stuff like, oh, we added this new thing, and like the better thing is, they like, I add, like, and I do have, like, made by Tyler Hillsman in Kansas City at the bottom of like the settings screen and stuff like that. And like, that was one thing, like, talking about Christian is like, he has, like, on his FAQ, he's like, here's cute pictures of my cats, or whatever. Right. And I don't know, it's a cool touch that probably is a good step in breaking that misconception that we're all corporations,
right.
Because you have to be
not
a corporation.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. One person at home by himself.
Yeah.
Something I told my wife, who is also an iOS developer, is in every one of your settings /about screen, put a picture of you and put a description of why you.
I actually just did that in my new app. I was like, I was about to release it to test flight yesterday, and I'm like, I need my face in here. And I was like, I want people to, like, see it's me, remember that, like, it's a real person behind it, and it's right now it's a free app for the 100 people that have it or whatever. But, like, I want them to remember, like, it's a real person making this thing, like, in my spare time. So, like, I appreciate feedback, but just take it easy a little bit because I'm a real person.
Yeah, adjust your feedback accordingly because it's just me.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the person you're going to be talking to over email.
And I think that's
I think that's smart.
That's a big important thing to do, because if you look at like Instagram, last I heard they had over 100 iOS developers working on just Instagram by itself, which is kind of insane.
It is.
I mean, I know it's a huge app, but like, really 100 people work in it.
How? Side note: how I've only worked on an app with like maybe 2 people.
Yeah.
So like, I always wanted to join an app with like 10 developers to see like how things go, maybe more. But I'm like, how do you do 100?
Yeah, I mean,
that's why nothing gets done.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why we don't have an iPad app yet.
Yeah, it's too many people. They can't get an iPad app because it's just too many people. That's the problem.
It's all the merge conflicts. Yeah.
But it's an important thing to keep in mind, right? Is for sort of the general purpose audience. If the most popular apps are Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, like these apps that have these just like literally whole floors of a building full of people working on it, I think it's very easy for that audience to then assume, like, well, then all apps. It's like, no, most apps are just Tyler by himself or Josh by himself, or right. And I think humanizing it really kind of hopefully keeps people kind of in perspective. I mean, probably not. You're going to get angry emails regardless, but
true.
Maybe fewer of them.
So does this help you, Josh, conceptualize how you want to get this going?
I think it does. Like, I was gonna go the in-app route just because, like, I was like, I haven't done this before. I kind of want to see how it goes, but I feel like this is actually gonna be like the proper way to do it now. And I think I'm gonna go for the route of like humanizing it, being like, hey, this is me, side project, heads up everyone. I have a passion for this, but like, if you want to support me, that's fine. If not, like, that's also totally fine, because otherwise I would have released this for free. So like, at least I might get some dollars out of it, but at least I'm going to learn along the way how to do the in-app payment and stuff. Because the payment up front stuff, I've done that before, and that's like a 15-second thing to do and a lot less fun, but also a lot less work. So I think I'm going to go in-app payment route, and I'll report back how it goes.
All right.
Hopefully you find other Joshes who are like, well, I like money. He probably likes money, so I'm just going to send him some money.
I hope so. That'd be amazing. I mean, I wouldn't complain.
What do you even name that in-app purchase?
The
Mutual Josh appreciation.
Josh's Unite, something like that.
Yeah, I like money.
I think my revenue cat is called like bonus stuff right now.
Nice.
I think that's the name of it. I don't know if I'm going to keep that, but I had no idea what to actually label it when I did it. So I'm just like, it's bonus stuff. I don't know.
Okay, so this week's episode is actually brought to you by Fernando's new book, From Junior to Senior, Practical iOS Style Guide. Over the past 10 years, Fernando has helped people get positions at Apple, startups in Silicon Valley, and other companies all over the world. There's literally dozens of people Fernando's mentored through different programs, and he's seen it time and time again. After you learn the basics of programming, you slow down because learning through experience is demanding and painful. In the book, He's taken all the bits of information missing from tutorials that he constantly teaches rising programmers with, and he's written them down to help you overcome your tutorial hell stage faster. The book contains rules you can immediately apply to your coding habits to dramatically improve, code from published apps that we will refactor and improve with these rules, and applied programming fundamentals. Encapsulation is not just a concept, you can see it in your code. Thanks once again to Fernando from Junior to Senior for sponsoring Code Completion. Go to HBS, twitter.com/from junior to senior. That's FROMJRTOSR today to learn more and pre-order the book.
That's so cool. I had no idea that you had a book. Congratulations. Yeah, I feel bad I didn't know, and now I actually want to go pre-order this book.
Well, I mean, I would appreciate
it. I assume it's paid up front, right?
Yeah, exactly. I like money. You like me. Send me money.
All right, deal.
Look, this is his business model in action.
Oh, that's probably tough.
It's an in-book purchase experience. You buy the book, and then you get the little leaflet, and you send it back with money. And then Fernando's very happy.
Nice.
Auto-renewing subscription is just keep doing that.
Yes. I mean, that's the holy grail.
You get one page, and then when you pay again, you get another page.
One page a month.
One page a month.
That UX sounds terrible.
Still pre-order it, please.
Well, yeah.
So now it's time for Complete the Code, where we quiz our listeners on your knowledge of Swift, Apple, and all things development. Ben, can you take it away?
Sure. Last week, we had a question related to some code around a table view cell and a date formatter. And there was a part of that code that might have been incorrect. And we want to shout out to Mark, got it right. He sent us a message on Twitter, which you can do too. He was the first person to answer correctly. He says, I have battle scars on this one. There's a bug in line, he's saying line 5, but on the screen it would be, it's not line 5, same one. On line 5, the format that we're using in the date formatter is we want to display the year, the 4-digit year, the 2-digit month, and the 2-digit day. But the problem is we're using capital Ys, and in the expression for date format for year, month, and day, the capital Y character is meant to be a week-based calendar year, not an ordinary calendar year. So you want to use a lowercase y. If you want 4 digits, you do 4 individual Y characters, lowercase, to get the sort of normal year that you would expect. If you use capital Ys, you're going to end up with a different value that will look strange, and you won't get what you want. So that's the answer for last week. Great job, Mark, on figuring that out. This week, if you take a look at the prompt we've got some code here, a view class that has a couple of properties and a couple of methods. So in here, we've got a view class with 2 properties, a private set parent variable of type optional view, and a private set children variable of type array of views. There are 2 methods, remove from parent view, which checks that the parent is not nil, and if it is, it removes self from the parent's list of children. The other method is add child, which will check to see if the child is not present, and if it isn't, call remove from parent view on the child, append the passed-in child view to the self's children property, and assign self to the child's parent property. So from all of that, what might the developer who wrote this code have overlooked? So it's just like last week. The code we've got here might have a mistake in it, and the first person to correctly identify that mistake on Twitter will get a shout out in next week's episode. So if you're listening to the podcast or watching, if you're watching, you can just look on the screen. If you're listening to the podcast, it's going to be available to you in the chapter art or in the show notes.
So we can't talk about that right now, can we?
No. Well, so it's a challenge for the audience. So
because I did a thing that I've never seen before, so I'm gonna Google that after this.
All right. If you have thoughts and you think you might know what it is, tweet at us and we'll shout you out in the next
I'm
episode.
not gonna win this one. There's no way, but I'm excited to see the answer next week.
All right.
So with all that out of the way, it's time for Compiler Error, a segment where I get to test my fellow completionists and our guests' knowledge about Swift, Apple, and all things development. So if you've ever played science or fiction at home, the rules should be instantly recognizable. I'll read out some statements, most of which are factual or valid code completions, if you will, while only one of them is an outright made-up lie, aka the compiler error. The best part, it's up to you to use your master debugging techniques to determine which one is the compiler error. So I have to ask everyone, when's the last time you've read the App Store review guidelines? Because that's what all 4 of these statements are about. And they were actually updated today, which is perfect timing.
I have never read them. I expect the reviewers to tell me when I've done something wrong, and then I read them.
It's fair.
Perfect. So let me read the 4 statements, and then I'll pick one of you to kind of deliberate over them, and you can reread them out loud. You can think out loud and try to come up with the one that's false, because you can only think alone, and everyone will kind of take their turn after you. So the first one is streaming game services may offer a catalog app on the App Store to help users sign up for the service and find the games on the App Store, provided that the app adheres to all guidelines, including offering users the option to pay for a subscription with in-app purchase and use sign-in with Apple. So review guideline number 2, apps in the kids category must not include links out of the app, purchasing opportunities, or other distractions to kids unless guarded behind a parental gate. Statement number 3, screenshots should not include text and image overlays other than to illustrate the app in use, and they must not use any Apple devices or products for marketing purposes. And statement number 4, if your app displays activity rings, they should not visualize move, exercise, or stand data in a way that resembles the activity control. So these are all App Store review guidelines that are current as of today. I take no responsibility for anything that changes after today. And let's go ahead and start with you, Josh. So which one do you think is the compiler error?
I feel like one could lead to some like spicy discussion that we don't have time for today.
Very spicy.
So with Fastlane, I deal with a lot of like screenshot related things. So that's the one that like grabbed my attention first. Screenshots should not 3 are right, 1 is wrong. Is that what?
Yep.
Correct.
Overlays to illustrate
So 3
the
are
app
real
and
guidelines.
should not include text and image overlays other. I saw a tweet today about something about like catalog app or something. I'm gonna ignore that one. I don't even like that one. I'm gonna go. Wait, which one's wrong?
Right.
Which
Yes.
not
Incorrect.
include. Oh my goodness. Yeah. How much time do we have left on the podcast?
15 seconds.
As much
Go.
time as you need.
15 seconds. Okay. I'm gonna go with number 2 for no logical reason at all. It just looks
An
good.
agent of chaos.
Ugh.
So,
What do I
Tyler.
win? Do I win something?
You win prestige.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take it. Okay.
So yeah, thinking through these, I did briefly skim the updates, and I want to say the first one might match something, but I could be off by like the inverse. Like this could be like wrong or something. But I'm gonna hope that the first one is true, or at least I think so. Number 2, I don't remember ever reading this, but I have seen quite a few kids apps, and they all generally have a parental gate, which is probably just smart UX, but also might be obviously influenced by this rule. So I'm going to say that might be true. Number 3, I am fairly certain that this one is true, even though it's by far not like enforced. Like you see all kinds of stuff in screenshots. I guess the maybe it used to be a little less vague or a little more clear cut or something, but I guess most things do use text and images to illustrate the app in use. That's kind of obviously the purpose. So even though I think people do use like iPhone mockups, but I want to say that was true. But I do think the 4th one is false, mostly because there is a activity ring class, like a included class that I forgot exactly what it's called, but it's in part of, I don't know, whatever, one of those activity kit or something like that, where you can display it. But I'm not entirely sure what activity control there means in that word. But I'm going to say 4 just because of that, because I think the intent of this thing is to display activity rings, visualizing move, exercise, and stand data. I just don't know what activity control is. Anyway, 4.
So, Fernando?
I think this is time for my revenge after last week's code completion. I think I know the answer. I'm going to say number 1.
Number 1 is false.
Correct.
Okay. And Ben?
So I know that 3, unless something has changed, 3 should be true because I've literally read that rule in there before. It is funny how comically ignored it is, both by people who upload apps and by Apple for not enforcing that they don't do this. Because, of course, you see Apple devices and mock-ups and stuff all over the place inside screenshots. But you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to show just the screen itself. There's also a thing about that in the video. You're not supposed to show things other than the app in use in the video. But again, I've seen a bunch of stuff that isn't that. So I'm pretty sure 3 is correct. 2 sounds right, kind of just like what Tyler said. 2 seems like that would be reasonable. But again, these rules are not necessarily always that reasonable. I just read today in the updates about the streaming game services. So you may offer a catalog app in the App Store to help people sign up for the service and find games. I know that part is true, provided that so it seems reasonable that it would adhere to all guidelines. And then offering users the option to pay for a subscription with in-app purchase and use sign with Apple. Again, that seems reasonable. I don't remember reading that part of the updated guideline, but that again seems reasonable. However, Dimitri is famous for making something look accurate and then changing a small thing to make it technically wrong.
That's what I was worried about.
So I'm going to say that 1 is true because it all looks reasonable, but I of course could be wrong there. So that means that the only one left is 4, what Tyler voted on. The activity rings should not visualize, move, exercise, or stand data in a way that resembles the activity control. Seems like a semi-petty thing that Apple would make you do because they want to be the only ones that where it looks that particular way. But it's the only one that I've got left that I haven't ruled out, so I'm going to say 4. My unmistakable logic there.
Okay, so you've all chosen, almost all of you have chosen different statements, but none of you have chosen number 3, so let's start there. So screenshots do not include text and image overlays other than to illustrate the app in use, and they must not use any Apple devices or products for marketing purposes. So this is review guideline 2.3.3. And I've reworded most of these just so that way they can fit on screen, but let me read out to you the original one. And it says screenshots should show the app in use and not merely the title art, login page, or splash screen, and we all know that. And they may also use text and overlay and image overlays, for example, to demonstrate input mechanisms such as an animated touch point or an Apple Pencil, and show extended functionality on device, such as a touch bar. So this is actually an endorsement from Apple to go ahead and use their devices in screenshots. So this is the compiler error.
I hate this game.
Wait.
I was so sure it wasn't number 3 because they're usually very, if you get featured, you get asked for assets that have no text because it gets localized, right? So they may show your feature in several places in the world. And I was so sure, no, this one's true.
So we all lost?
We all lost,
Man.
yes. Immediately.
Well, Dimitri won.
Wow.
What are the chances?
All right. Wow. Wait, screen touch? It must not use. Oh, I should have. Oh. I should have known that one. In Fastlane, we have a tool called Frame It that puts Apple devices on screenshots.
I knew that
I
existed,
blame
but I
You
just...
of all people, Josh. I mean,
I blame going first on that one, and the pressure of going first, not reading them. I'm going to blame it on that.
fair.
So,
So, Dimitri,
actually-
is it the case that used to be a rule as written? Because I'm almost positive that I remember reading a rule like that, early on in the App Store.
Yeah.
So people do get what's that called when you get revoked? Rejected. There we go. Knew it started with an R. So people do get rejected when you include Apple device trademarks in your copy. And
Right.
I didn't see anything that specifies you can't do that. So there's no guideline for saying you can't do that, though I've seen time and time again people get rejected for it, so I would never try it. And I also thought, much like all of you, that you can't use an actual Apple device in the screenshots, but you can use the silhouette of
Oh, that's
the
how I
mock-up
read it.
because
Yeah.
almost everyone uses one of those nowadays, to my
Right.
chagrin, because
Yep.
like it's easier just to see the app. Stop with the marketing baloney. Put in your description. That's what a description's for.
But nobody
Um,
reads.
So-
No. But I was very curious. I was very interested seeing that they actually endorse using like an Apple Pencil directly in to show that you can use an Apple
I've
Pencil.
never
or to
seen an Apple
use-
Pencil in a screenshot.
And never, they really want people to put an Apple Pencil on screen.
Yeah. If that's the case, why did they still make us do the size of the actual like image then? If it's gonna be any image.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Apparently
That's a
that
good point.
changed in June 8, 2017. Previously, the rule used to read screenshots should show the app in use and not merely the title art, login page, or splash screen, and that's it.
So
And
that's just that first part of it. Yeah.
right, so I'm not entirely sure that we're incorrect in assuming that maybe before there like you couldn't add
I said
text.
as of today.
No, that's totally fair. Totally fair. I agree. Those were the rules. They added that you may include text overlays, and then in September 2017, they added the image and to demonstrate input mechanisms such as animated touchpoint or the Apple Pencil. Which
Where
I
are you
find
looking at
interesting.
this?
Probably some
I
GIF.
just have it memorized.
And you still got it wrong?
What? Oh, damn. I hate this game. I'm just gonna leave.
So that means that the other three are in fact true. So number 4, if your app displays activity rings, they should not visualize move, exercise, or stand data in a way that resembles the activity control. I'm like, huh? But that's an actual rule as stated. That's number 5.2.5.
Sure.
Activity control.
Apple?
Like
Is there a definition of what activity control is? Because I'm with Tyler on that one. I don't know what that is.
I think that's the rings.
The rings, the 3 rings.
Oh,
that's MK
It's weird.
Activity View, which is like a class that you can use and populate with your data. which
And
is
it's
interesting.
public.
Alright,
It's not
well,
a
that's
private
cool.
API. It's
Yeah.
So I guess you must use that, and you can't re-implement it yourself.
I think
Maybe.
no,
the
I don't think so. So
interpretation?
it's rule 5.2 intellectual property 5.2.5 says don't create an app that appears confusingly similar to an existing Apple product interface app blah blah blah.
And then
they
there's acceptable and
specifically
unacceptable. Yeah.
yeah, they specifically call out if your app displays activity rings, do not modify the look and feel of the rings themselves or the data they represent. So if you show rings, they must show move, exercise on or stand data.
You can't
And
repurpose
I
them.
think they only they get to do that. Like only
Gotcha.
Apple. Yeah.
Interesting. And
Also,
then-
I'm checking all this out at a webpage called App Store Review Guidelines History.com.
okay.
Yeah.
and we'll put that in the show notes so everybody listening after you can.
Next time I can quiz you on the past histories. As
Boy.
of 2007.
What have you done, Fernando? You've given him a new power.
Dibs
no.
not being on that episode. I don't want to take that quiz.
So going on to number 2, so apps in the kids category must not include links out of the app. So I didn't know that the kids category is actually sacred in a way that there's a lot of restrictions that make it just for kids, and you can't like upsell them on anything. And you need to have a parental gate, which is like a little functionality that only an adult could feasibly do, like move the circle into the triangle kind of thing. And that's the example that they give.
Like 2 plus 2. Like
yeah.
They're kids, guys. They're not dumb.
Well, I guess if they're smart enough to get past it, then they're smart enough to reset their device anyways. So,
That's fair.
and then number 1 is the new rule from today that clarified that game streaming services can be on the App Store. You can have a catalog app with in-app purchase, and you must use sign-in with Apple. I guess they just threw that in there as like you need this. And then it can link to individual apps on the App Store that I guess would read the same subscription from the same app group. I'm not too sure how that works to have cross-app subscriptions, but that's now an official rule in the App Store.
Seems weird.
Did you all see, by the way, today, I think it was today, or maybe yesterday, that Apple was going to was going to remove Epic's ability to use signing with Apple on Fortnite and stuff, ostensibly because they revoked their developer account due to the lawsuit, yada, yada. And then people were like, oh, so you're weaponizing signing with Apple now. You're making it so that if you don't like an app, you can not only potentially pull the app from the App Store, but you could, or pull it so it can't be purchased again. But also, none of the existing users can log in if they've used signing with Apple. You're making it so that no developer would ever want to use signing with Apple because it's it has this kill
We have
switch.
to.
But you have to, right? Yeah, that's the thing.
Is
Yeah.
is that a technical limitation that they currently have that they could
So,
fix? Like
Perhaps.
the revoked account happens, so
Right.
sign with Apple stuff all gets shut down, which kind of makes sense
Yes.
in a way.
No,
That
but
would,
if
I
that
feel
would,
that
like
were the case, they would have shut down signing with Apple the moment they revoked the
Right.
account, and so it's still
Oh,
working. They gave notice of
they're
them.
revoking it at different times.
and they have
Yeah,
since
so I don't think it's technical.
And they have since
Okay.
said publicly, after a bunch of people got mad at Apple for saying they were going to do this, they have since said, "Oh, never mind, we're going to leave the Fortnite sign with Apple working." So the fact that it
Did
didn't get
Apple
shut down.
ever say they were going to shut it down, though? We only heard from the Fortnite people that
Oh, that's
they
true.
were going
Agreed.
to revoke it.
So
I
that's
don't know
fair.
if
like-
Apple said they weren't though.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I saw them saying. I thought I saw a news report saying that they have since come out and said that they're not revoking it.
Aha. I think they didn't say they were going to revoke it, but I think they did say they weren't going to revoke it.
Yeah, that.
But it just that and the fact that it didn't get shut down with the developer certificates being pulled shows you
Yeah.
that it's not a technical limitation. It is
Yep.
Okay.
something else.
So, all of that said, Josh, Tyler, thank you so much for joining us this episode.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
of
having
course.
us.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And how can people reach out to either of you? Josh first.
I'm Josh D. Holtz, almost everywhere. Twitter, GitHub. Well, I lied. My website is joshholtz.com, which is rather confusing. But if you go to my Twitter, everything is there, Josh D. Holtz. So probably the best way to see stuff that I do.
And Tyler?
T Hillsman everywhere. THILLSMAN. That's my Twitter handle. GitHub, even though I don't do a ton of stuff publicly, unfortunately. But yeah, and then I guess TylerHillsman.com is my website, but I also don't post too much there. So Twitter is kind of the entryway into stuff I tweet about. Pin it if you're interested in it. It is Pin It app on Twitter. I think it's the first result when you search that on the App Store.
Nice.
Awesome. And as always, I want to personally thank everyone for watching and listening live this week. We'll be streaming every Friday as usual, so be sure to follow us on Twitter at Code Completion to know when new episodes go live and get released. Be sure to also sign up for our monthly newsletter on our website at codecompletion.io, where we will recap the topics we discussed, reveal the answers to complete the code, and share even more things we learned between episodes. And most importantly, as a new podcast, please be sure to share this with all your friends and family who are also interested in any part of the process of app development, whether it's from a very high level, you're just interested in it, or you're an actual app developer. We're here to teach all assets of that story. So it's your support that enables us to continue doing this, and we hope to grow a healthy community around everything we talk about. And once again, I want to give my thanks to Ben, who is at Ferrous Guy, that's FERROUSGUY on Twitter, and Fernando, who is at From Junior to Senior, that's FROMJRTOSR, for joining me this week. My name once again is Dimitri, and you can find me at Dimitri Buñol, that's DIMITRIBOUNIOL, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.
See ya.
See you
Bye,
guys.
guys.
See ya.